we?
It's just not.
All right, so we will call the finance committee meeting together for the workshop regarding the budget, which we talked about at our last finance meeting. So that, is there anyone here that's any public comment on the agenda? Seeing none, I will turn it over to Ms. Vignette.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lee. Unfortunately, the PowerPoint was just uploaded to your slide deck. I'm so sorry. I mean, to your packet. So this is the first time that you've seen it. So I guess it was better that you didn't see it ahead of time, then you wouldn't be sad when you came in today. So
I've been crying all
I'm
weekend.
chronically disappointed when it comes
It's
to
been
our
a
budget.
long, hard weekend.
Not because of you.
I know. Lisa and I feel really badly when we go through this time of year because as you were just stating in the last meeting, I mean, it's always so hard trying to fulfill all of our needs, as you know. But we will keep moving through the process and do the best we can. And here we go. So Lisa is going to start us out this meeting.
Okay. So the first few slides in the presentation were in the presentation a couple weeks ago. We just wanted to bring them back around since they're fundamental to the process and to the rest of the presentation. The first slide is a review of our FY27 budget priorities, which are priorities always to strengthen student achievement, but to strengthen student achievement while maintaining financial stewardship. And our focus is going to be on additional behavior supports and then quality recruitment and retention for all of our employee groups, teachers, administrators, and classified staff. The next slide shows our budget challenges again. Again, just quickly, we do have some challenges in several areas. Inflation, the district is subject to increasing prices, as we all are right now. We face limitations due to Act 388 and lack of fiscal autonomy. We have requirements placed on us by the state and others that we do not receive adequate funding and sometimes no funding at all for. Our state funding formula doesn't allow us to predict future revenues. We have to wait on projections from the state, and that challenges us to have to react in real time to information that we get along the process. And then the state timeline, legislative process, their budget process runs until June as ours does, and we have to adopt on the fly as that changes as we go along. And that's not always easy. And then we wanted to bring up the state's budget process one more time, just to kind of fill you in on where we are now. There's an asterisk to the side of the purple box there. So right now we're kind of between the blue box on the top line and the purple box on the second line. This week, there are Senate budget subcommittee meetings that started, I think they may have started last week and continue on for a little while. The full Senate finance budget deliberations begin August 7th to 9th, and that's our next big milestone in the state. Then I'm going to turn it over to Tina to talk about revenue.
Okay, revenue for this current year, this is a pie chart that we looked at the last time. Our local taxes, we received 26%, other locals 1%. So with our aid to classrooms, state in lieu of taxes, and then other state equals 72%. So that's why we have to keep such a close eye on what's happening in Columbia's, because most of our funds come from the state. So what we received for projections from the state, and also we received some early projections from Dorchester County. The local funding additional property taxes at this time is 1.3 million. State funding for state aided classrooms, this includes just the formula, the way that the funding formula is right now is 2.4%. 2.4 million, pardon me. And then the state funding from our tier 3, that is the amount of money that the state is providing to us to make up for the Act 388. We have another slide in a few minutes to talk about what the effects of Act 388 has been on our district. So those totals right now for additional funds is 5.1 million.
So that, is any earmarked or anything, or is that potentially available for our general operating?
That's all for our general operating funds at this time. So just to let you know a little bit about the impact of Act 388 for Dorchester 2, well, specifically across the whole state. Act 388 eliminated local property taxes on owner-occupied homes for school operations. So we no longer receive property tax revenue, which is a stable source of revenue. And now it has moved over to state sales tax for the penny increase for state sales tax. The first year that this was enacted, we were reimbursed from the state dollar for dollar, but then every year after that, it was based on a formula. There was also a limitation on the increase in fair market value. It could not go over 15% whenever there was property tax reassessment. So there's also a cap limiting annual millage increase on the non-owner occupied property, which is the increase of the consumer price index plus your growth in population in your specific area. So just in the Dorchester 2 area. So Act 388 really swapped the property taxes for sales tax. And right when this went into effect, there was the Great Recession. So unfortunately, folks weren't spending as much money. So we didn't receive in the state as much sales tax. So that's where we just started on the slippery slope of not being able to be fully funded, fully replaced for our property tax revenues. Also, one thing that in Dorchester 2, we have more homes than we do properties that are taxed for school operations. So we don't have as much business in industry as our neighbors do. So unfortunately, that has led us to be behind. We have fallen behind our neighbors because of that. Again, after the first year where we were no longer fully funded, you could just see the discrepancy just grow and grow and grow. So ever since then, just DD2, we have not seen $270 million that we would have gotten from property taxes. If we had the same millage increase, same millage amount that we have now, which that could be subject to change. Maybe we didn't need as many mills if we would have been able to keep our same value of our mill. Right now, we have another slide that tells the value of our operating mill is 430,000, but the debt mill is twice that, almost 900. If we could have kept the 900,000, we'd be in great shape right now.
Tina, has this basically been explained in a public format, how all of this occurred and how's the impact that it's having on what we can and cannot do?
We try to explain it every year during budget season, but maybe we should try to
I don't know.
try to tell our
If we need
story
have some-
outside of budget time.
This is
I
a
feel like
public
this is-
format also.
No. What I'm saying
I
is,
know.
My face is because it's something I think we've talked about with Dr. Robbins extensively with working with our Director of Community Relations to have an Act 388 education campaign. And so that's something we want to put out through social media in short consumable reels, infographics, in digestible bits so people can start to understand it in plain terms. So
I just feel if you basically walk downtown and you approach 10 people and ask them to explain what do they know and understand about how we are funded, et cetera, what happened in the past, what's going on now, what does the future look like, they would have no clue. Maybe one might have somewhat of an idea.
I agree.
I mean, I was working in the district. I didn't understand we just went on down there and begged and
So-
sit and look like we were poor little creatures needing a raise.
Anybody want to
But-
set up a table at the Flower Town Festival? Someone will ask me about it.
They don't,
Oh, I
definitely
know.
don't. Hey, they're
I
probably,
nominate
like
you,
fun.
Jim.
don't rain on our parade. We're here to
We
have
will be
fun.
down there for our recruitment and retention. We will be there.
Jealous
We will
of
have that sign.
No. Oh, you have some upset
No,
people.
I-
No, I'm serious. I don't
Yes,
know if we
ma'am.
need to have it in churches or wherever we can get a crowd. We just need them to understand because I honestly don't believe people get it.
If I had $1 for every single time somebody tells me their property
Oh,
tax funds or
yes,
operations or
Yes.
just it
My
doesn't
tax
since when?
paid for
What's
this.
Act 388? I mean, the amount of times I explain it is like bang your head against the wall, maddening. So if I like, I always joke, I'm like, if I just had like a little video or something like that, I can just constantly, yes, in Act 388, you know, here you go, you know, and here's a link to the video to watch that will like outline it in detail.
I mean, if
I
we
don't-
had something, you know, at all the schools, these videos go out and we compensate, their name go into a pot for drawing. If you show up and you sit through it, and don't make it long, because their attention's not to be that long. So we need to make it short, but yet give them some of this information here. And then we have, you know, little drawing for different things. They'll come for drawing, they'll come for food. And I don't mean that in an ugly way, but I mean, we just need to get them there where we can capture their minds for just a few minutes so they can understand this. And if they can still walk away and feel nothing, then I don't know what else to say to them. These are your children that are basically missing out. We're doing all we can do, but there's only so much you can do with whatever dollars you have. And so I would like us to probably see if we can get something going where we just get the public excited about just hearing about this.
Well, whether we've communicated this or not, clearly it's not resonating well
No.
enough that people understand it. And just suffice to say, because I do want to hear what else we're going to hear about this. Not that we don't need to come back to Act 388, but the bottom line, not to repeat myself again, the way we fund education in the state, in particular our district, is inane. The problem is tax policy and not recognizing schools are not optional. These aren't nice to have. This isn't a park. This isn't whatever. We are required by the Constitution to provide a public education, period. Somebody wants to go fight that battle, knock your socks off. But until such time, that's what we need to do. We need to have a reliable and sustainable source of funding in order to execute public education. That's where we are. Now is the time, as we go through this, and you guys have presented some challenges and whatnot, we got to be able to tell the story. And that's on us.
And unfortunately, this is a state law. And I don't know that it's ever going to get changed because it was voted upon by the taxpayers in the entire state to abolish the operating taxes for schools to save for
But
property
there are
tax.
grandmothers and
We're
fathers
gonna pass.
No,
and-
I don't think so either.
that really care about their little grandbabies.
Right.
And whether or not they're getting this education. So I'm just saying, we just have to attract the right group of people so that they can help spread the word. One of our sessions when we were at the conference was, you need to tell your story. If you don't tell your story, someone else will tell it. And it will not be the story you want told. So technically, we have to have a better way of getting our message out because apparently,
Well, it's also difficult since we are in a county where we don't have fiscal autonomy. We must go to county council for any millage increases. I think it's difficult on them because they know that it's going to be the taxes will be increased on the businesses. And we have a lot of small mom and pop businesses in our district. We don't have a lot of the commercial. We don't have the Boeing. We don't have the big industry that probably wouldn't feel a 10 mil increase. They wouldn't feel it. But we have a lot of smaller businesses here. So I'd say it's difficult for them to have to
and I feel
pass
for
a
them.
millage increase as well. So, but that's where we would get our local increases from, would be a millage increase from the businesses in our school district area. Okay. Sorry about that. And then speaking of our millage, so our millage increase, we received an increase from 2018 to 2019 year of 10 mils. And then we had reassessment in 2025, which you can't get a gain from reassessment. So you can't recognize a gain, so that we had to roll back by 5 mils, but then we did get a 7.6 mil increase last year. So over the last 10 years, we've got 2 increases. And then here is the millage increase history with the actual numbers. Also, we were talking about, we are allowed in the state of South Carolina, every school district is allowed to increase their millage by the percentage of the increase in your population plus your consumer price index. So for each year represented here on this graph, you can see the mills that we would have been able to increase. So in the year 2020, we could have gone up 6 mills, but we didn't receive an increase. So that kind of goes in a bank. The next year, we could have gone up 5. We didn't receive an increase. In 2022, we could receive 10.8 based on those two factors. We received 7.6. So you can always look back by 3 years.
So where did that money go that we could have or should have?
It goes away forever. You've lost out on that forever.
So if you don't act on it during that year, then
You have 3 years.
You
look
can
back.
go back.
3 years.
Yep, you can go back 3 years. So you have a current year and then you can go back 3 years. So if you look at these next 3 years, we could have gone up 18.8, 13.4, and 12.4, and we received 7.6. So a 3-year look back right now of the total of those, it's 44.59 mils. Not that we're gonna ask for that.
I just think the problem is, and what, just to kind of highlight a little opposite side of that too, is that'd be a substantial like ask, and we're not the ones who get to approve it ultimately. It's the county council. So like, even if we could potentially look back to 3 years and ask for the 44.59 mils, I mean, we have no say over that whatsoever.
But
So-
you can just see kind of by the totals of that. So we've lost out on this 44.59 mils forever and
Yes.
ever. And if we just use our value of our operating mill now, 432,000, that's 19.2 million. We were just to catch up just from the past 3 years. And again, the value of our debt mill is 899,000, so it's 900. If we were back in the days where we would have 900,000 per mill, maybe our millage would have gone down and we could still be in great shape. So the next graph shows you the estimated value of a mill. The latest information that we had from the Revenue Fiscal Affairs Office was of 2023. It just kind of illustrates the value of a mill. So Charleston's mill is almost 3.5 million per mill. Beaufort is 1.5. Berkeley's right around the same amount, and we are less than 500,000. Fortunately, Dorchester 4 is probably half of what we have. Yes, because of the tax base in your actual district. So they have a lot, they just have a lot of local businesses that can promote that can increase their value of their mill. They have a lot of 6% properties, right? The non-resident, the rentals on the beaches, and the big businesses and industry.
But unless we do better, District 4 is going to catch up unless they stick with only one school district in the county. But because they still have property that they aren't building a whole bunch of houses on.
It's business and industry.
Yeah.
They'll get more tax base. You're right.
Okay, so now we're gonna talk expenditures, and before we get into some specific numbers, we just have, wanted to show these two expenditure graphs again, just to highlight that on the first graph, 95% of our expenditure spending is for operations of our schools. So instruction, instructional support, school management, transportation and safety, facilities and custodial, those all add up to 95%. And then the second graph shows that the majority of our expenditures are for salaries and benefits. That makes up 86.3% of our expenditure budget in 2026. So this next one is also a new little graph, but it's a graphical representation of the starting salary of first-year teachers with a bachelor's degree. And I guess what I just wanted to point out was if you look at this graph, it looks a lot like the one that we just saw a couple graphs before that shows the value of the mill. So our ability to raise the teacher salary has everything to do with our ability to raise revenue. But it's not all bad news. The next graph shows our starting salary, from FY 2018 to FY 26 and FY 27, with the proposal we're gonna show you later on. But from 2018 to 2026, we were able to raise our starting teacher salary by over $15,000. And that $15,000 increment translates to a 43% increase over that same time period. So we would, while we'd love to do more, would love to have done more, we've done the most that we could do. And these numbers still show that we are committed to increasing salaries as much as we possibly can. So this leads us into some more detailed numbers for 2027. This first slide talks about those reductions in FY 27 and some FY 26 allocation additions that we were required to do. And I'm going to let Mr. Doherty give us some details on that.
Yeah, so if you look at that, the first line talks about reductions. It says projected reduction in elementary positions. A little bit that's deal with repurposing of span. So that's where you're looking at those 29 positions of right sizing. A few of the middle school positions there, 5.3. Right now, we're still going through the high school allocations right now. They've just done a course request for students, so we don't have any of those allocations right now. We should have some more of that probably in the next couple weeks. And then you can see project reductions in district office positions. Right now, we're looking at possibly eliminating a coordinator in special ed and possibly another half position, a salary of a position of somebody that's paid out of a grant, and half their salary is paid out of general funds. So almost 2 positions there. And then when we're looking at that, you look at the sign-on bonuses, we won't do those. And then reallocating positions out of the capital funding. So the 8% capital funds that we use for our capital projects, we're able to capture some of those salaries and push those into that 8% funding. That's some of Jeff's people from maintenance are able to go in there because they actually work on those projects. So we're able to recapture that. So just moving of those to save some of the general fund, which we can then pay for teachers.
So we're not having a sign-on bonus?
No. And so allocations added at the start of the fiscal 26 year to enrollment changes. So last year we added $1.1 million into our fund last year to start the school year. And some of those were SPED positions that we added just last year to try to make that. And that's that bottom one there. So you can see that. So when you look at all of that, reductions and some allocation additions, that's a savings of about $2.6 million. So with the right sizing there.
Thank you.
So our next slide shows, the first section shows our mandates and required increases. And we talked about these last time as well. We have some numbers put to them. We are mandated to do a step for our teachers. So that's moving all our teachers up 1 step on the salary scale at a cost of $2.25 million. We're also required to provide a 2% salary increase to the state minimum salary schedule for bus drivers, and we're estimating that cost around $200. And we received notification that Dorchester County is going to be providing an increase to their SROs that they're passing on to us at an estimate of about $150,000. There's one additional item we wanted to put on the radar that relates to paid parental leave. So we heard at the end of last week that there's an item on the Senate subcommittee this week. The only thing that's on there to talk about is a change in the definition of who qualifies. They want to add higher education. However, if you remember last year, they talked about increasing paid parental leave from 6 weeks to 12 weeks, and it got pushed off. Well, there is some concern that if someone makes a change for this definition, that they may try to put that 12 weeks back on the table. But we don't have any way of knowing if that's going to happen or not, but we just wanted to put it out there. If that happens, it does affect school districts, then it will be unfunded. So jumping down to the second section, that's our district priorities. The first is since we are doing step for teachers that's mandated, we have one to do a step for classified and other certified staff not paid on the teacher scale. That would cost 1.75 million. We would also make a priority, doing a $1,000 increase to all steps on the teacher salary scale. That would bring the starting salary to 52,500, and that is at a cost of 2.5 million. Also do a 1% increase for classified and certified not paid on the scale. That's 850,000. We also talked about our student behaviors priority, and that would involve establishing an elementary alternative program.
And let me add to that, you'll hear a presentation tonight on that at the board meeting about what that will look like. And then just going down there, and I'll help Lisa a little bit here. Sorry, Lisa.
No, go right ahead.
So you look at, school-based administrator salaries, we have, $1.1 million there. Just to give you a little perspective, just like with the starting salaries for our teachers are Fort 51.5, Charleston's at 65, 66, Berkeley's at, I believe, 56.5. So as administrator, if I'll give you an example, we had an administrator come to us, an assistant principal at one of our high schools that's going to interview at Berkeley. And their assistant principal for a high school starts at 93,000 until I believe it's 130,000 as their scale. Ours is 74,000 to 119,000. So again, our teachers, our administrators, even our classified staff too, are all underpaid. And so we're trying to, stretch as many dollars to affect every group. And then that comes aligned with your district office admin salaries too. So they're all involved together. And so just to make sure the board's aware of, that's kind of what we're facing. And I think everybody in this room would probably agree with that. So just want you to just see kind of the perspective that what we have when we're putting these things on there as priorities.
So the next slide gives some other salary considerations and other student behavior supports that we would like to include in the request if there's funding available. We would like to, in addition to doing the 1,000 that we talked about on the previous slide, we would like to do an additional $1,000 for the steps on the teacher scale. That would bring the starting salary to 53.5 if we're able to do that. And add an additional 1% increase for the classified certified staff not paid on the teacher scale. Last item on that is to adjust the facilities maintenance salary scales. That's another scale that we feel like we need to look at, and that would be partially funded by that reduction that we talked about on the reductions page by moving portions of some of the maintenance people into 8% funding. And then the bottom section is additional student behavior supports, additional board certified behavior analysts, additional registered behavior technicians, and a director of student concerns, transfer and attendance, and truancy. That's going to be long to put on a business card. Offset by a potential position reduction. That's why that amount is only $74,000. There's an offset there.
So just to, kind of that funnel is pretty big, and then it starts to do this. When you look at the dollars, we're finally seeing kind of what our budgets and our projections are. I know Tina and I have another meeting this week with the county about a little bit about how much more money they're going to be able to give us. So again, that funnel starts to do this, what we're able to do. And you can kind of see, here's our priorities and here's some other considerations. We'd love to see those other considerations put on with the teacher salaries as well. So.
Do we have an addition for sub pay?
We did not have that on there for sub pay at this point. I think the last time we touched sub pay, I believe, was it 2 years ago, Scott?
I was,
3 years ago?
Last year,
I think it was
125.
3 years ago.
we went to 125.
Went to
Wasn't that last year?
125 for.
It was like 3 years
Dr.
ago.
Robbins' first year.
Yeah, it was the year I got elected, 2022.
Oh, so it was, okay. So it's 2 to 3 years
125
ago.
for non-certified and 150 for certified.
Okay.
Do we know comparatively where we stand in terms of sub pay compared to your?
So a non-certified sub here, or a certified sub here gets what a non-certified gets in Lake Charleston County, essentially.
continuing the theme, but the answer is.
Yes. Um,
Yes.
oh, wait. It's hard, and even Berkeley, like Berkeley, I think they're certified. No, their non-certified subs are getting approximately what our certified subs are getting at a daily rate. And if you do the math, $125 a day times however many hours you're there. Great.
And our last expenditure slide for our request is other academic and district office departmental requests. So these are other requests that were made that, again, things that we feel are needed and we would like to do, but based on funding constraints, we may not be able to. But we wanted to include them in the request because we think they are important and needed. And that includes, I won't read through all of them individually, but some additional special services FTE due to enrollment and changes, additional social workers, a school counseling coordinator, a multilingual instructional coach, some additional nursing due to changes in population, and then converting an equipment operator position to an athletic grounds position. That's a small amount because it's just changing that position. Same with the transportation secretary position being converted to a routing specialist. And then moving two technology positions from assistant directors to directors. And so the total of that section is an additional 1.2 million. So to sum it all up, this is just a summary of those previous slides. Our proposed reductions with a negative 2.7 million, state mandates total 2.6, our district priorities 7.5, other salary considerations 3.7, 771,000 in additional student behavior supports, and there are other academic and departmental requests we looked at on the previous slide, 1.1, 1.2 million totals, just over $13 million in total requests.
What was the increase? You said the projected increase from state and county. What was that again?
5.1.
5.1.
We have a slide that shows our
Yeah.
revenues and expenditures.
It's coming.
But you
Okay.
can fast map and you can see we're already behind, right?
Well, yeah, no. And then I have some other questions.
We'll
Okay,
get there.
yeah.
So the blue slide shows things that were requested that we're able to fund from other sources. So we try to fund as many things as we can outside of the general operating fund, if that's at all possible. We are able to pay for Panorama from IDEA and the Medicaid billing software out of Medicaid. And then there's a number of things that we're able to fund from 8% funding. Some facilities things, some vehicles, capital kind of purchases that we're able to pay out of there. And then a teacher leader of recruiting, mentoring, and induction can be funded by Title II. So we're able to fund about $1.5 million in requests that way without touching the general operating fund. And then the red are a number of other things that were requested that we did not include in the request, but were requested. So we wanted to list those out so that you could see what those requests were. And we're not going to go through every one again, but would ask if maybe Mr. Doherty, if there's anything
Yeah, I
you
think-
might want to point out. Or
Yeah, a
highlight.
lot of our, when we do this, when we go through the budget process, we go through all of our departments, and our departments will go on and do the asks. And then we kind of go through these and say which ones make the cut, which ones don't. And so it's kind of that funnel when we look at the number of dollars that we have and what we can afford, what we can't afford. So these didn't make it on the final list. And you can see there's a number of special education, some therapists, OT, sensory room items, again, RBTs. We do feel like those are all important, but again, these are some things we just could not put on the list at this time.
Value in the mail was 440,000. What was it again?
Well, 432 was the amount that we had from last year, and you haven't gotten the exact numbers yet from the county. Chad said that we are meeting with them on Wednesday morning, so hopefully we'll get some updated numbers. These were the preliminary, early numbers, that we received from the auditor.
So to your point, that's the meeting to figure out what the county.
Yeah. Yeah, if they can get, if there's any more money that they have found, and so we're hoping that they have some more dollars, we hope, so.
You know, if their projections were maybe just a little low the first go around, so.
And they'll ask us to what they want us to bring to the presentation, I think, too. So we're all prepared for that. We go down and present to the county council. So
What is that presentation?
It is, is on our calendar as May 11th.
Thank you.
So we will, have a board workshop, another board workshop on April 13th and then April 27th, where we'll talk about the presentation to the county council. So this next slide is our summary of the revenues. So projected revenues for next year from local is 89.4 million, state is 188.3, a little tiny bit of federal, impact aid of 75,000. And then transfers in, that's another EIA from the state of our other portion of state aided classrooms. So the total projected revenue is 305 million. We have highlighted there how much we need between what we just told you as our increases plus all of the expenditure requests. So
Wait, I'm
we-
sorry, Tina, what, can you say what again, what the transfers in is?
Transfers in is basically the EIA portion of the state aid to classrooms. It doesn't come in through our general
I
fund.
got
It
you.
comes
Okay.
in through,
Yes.
yep,
Sorry, thanks.
you're welcome. So our total, if we wanted to include all of the green slides, we would need $8 million to bring us to total $313 million. So you can see we started budget expenditures for this year of 300 million. And then the proposed reductions for FY27 and then the additions during FY26 is that negative 2.6 million. And then all of those different categories we went on through on all of the different slides brings us to a subtotal of 13 million that we talked about to bring us to a total of 313. So in order for us to balance, we need 8,011,000.
That would be to get us at 53,500 starting.
Yes. And right now, the governor's proposal was to get the state minimum to 50,500. So we're above that now. So we've been.
What is our, what are we above it right now currently?
We're at 51.5 right now.
And what is
They're
the
at
state?
40.
49?
They're 49.5 right now.
We're about 2,000. Yes. Sorry, I'm thinking out loud.
Oh, good. Good questions. And then the last slide is our budget calendar, what we were just talking about. We're on the arrow of March 23rd. Next time we come together, hopefully we'll see if the county has some better projections for us. Maybe who knows, the state will have some more money. I'm not counting on the state. But we'll have a public input and board workshop on April 13th. Then April 27th will be our next workshop to discuss the presentation to county council. And then May 11th is our presentation to them. We'll have another public hearing and budget presentation. And then on the calendar now is for our school board to adopt the budget on June 11th.
So we do the public hearing after we present the draft budget to the county council.
Yes, we're doing the public input to get their input. And then the public hearing would be after, fingers crossed, that they would provide us with some additional millage. So then we can bring a better presentation for the public hearing. And those were all of the items that we had. I think Mr. Lee said he had some questions.
Comments, questions?
So we basically, the amount of mills you're presuming we need is based on that $8 million deficit, correct? Can we get potentially a breakdown of what the alignment of the district office admin salaries with the school-based admin adjustment looks like, that 775,000? I'd like to understand more, like who that's affecting, where their salaries are.
I think a lot of it lies with your directors, assistant directors, everybody, because when you start moving everybody else, you get a compression issue.
I understand.
And so it's just to do that when you look at everybody in the district office. You know, it's,
Is compression always spoken? I guess maybe I'm ignorant. I still always think you should help the little guys before, if once you're over a certain amount of money, kind of like, you're clearly not suffering. I think people who aren't getting a livable wage.
and I think the big thing is, I mean, being competitive with, with administration. I mean, I'll be honest with you, it's hard to find good people. And then I just talked to a minister from Charleston County, and they were talking about all their assistants, and it's hard to find good leadership to
I
take
agree at
over
the
that.
school level for sure.
And even at some of your, you know, your levels here, I know Dr. Wilson could probably speak a little bit to that. I know he's been working a little bit with personnel, a little bit on this office, but when you look at everybody in this, everybody's underpaid. And so it's just,
I
it's
don't
just,
know.
yeah, so it's not a big, huge raises. It's just to keep.
That's why I was just curious what that looked
Yeah,
like.
we can bring that to the board. That won't be a problem.
But net, questions and observations. So this all looks like roughly about a 3% increase over last year. I mean, look at the rate of inflation over the last year. Went through all the effort to try and do a preliminary look at right sizing, optimizing, and doing the best things. And in doing so, you covered the unfunded mandates that we estimate we're going to get. And then we can talk about district priorities. And our district priorities are driven by growth, driving towards academic achievement. We haven't even talked about capital. Okay, and teacher recruitment retention. So nice job, very good presentation. Lots of questions. Did you get any numbers from the House? Is that what this was all about?
Yes, it was
This is all
included there. House Ways and Means.
County, the only way they're gonna do more is if the total assessed value is higher than what they originally estimated, they're not gonna give us any money. Okay. They're not giving anything, okay? It's all based on what's our total assessed value, okay, and the mills that we have. And then it becomes down to discussion, how many more mills are necessary to do what's essential, that are our priorities.
Don't give us what's essential.
Well, and I would note that we're not where we're supposed to be in terms of state versus local funding. That remains a problem. With the paid parental leave increase possibility, do you have any idea what that might look at on top of everything?
We can look at it. The whole problem with the paid parental leave is that it's all totally dependent on who needs to take that leave in any given year. And it can vary wildly depending on the situation. We could look back and see what we estimated when they put the first 6 weeks in.
About 600.
I think it was about
I
600,000
think so.
is what our estimate was.
Just half a mil here.
Sooner or later, it ends up to real money.
It does.
Any other comments or questions? Toughest question I'm gonna ask. What aren't you telling me?
What aren't we telling you?
You guys
Besides
have
the
done a
obvious-
great job.
Oh, I was like,
Okay,
Besides the obvious that we don't have enough money, that's the only thing that, I mean, we
That-
really pared it down. As Mr. Doherty said, we had a lot of requests, and you can see from the reds what we knew we wouldn't be able to get money for, which those aren't high needs, they really are.
Google money.
Can you find more money?
Google money.
You know,
no
Google money, yes, the money we're supposed to be
We're
getting.
supposed to have lots of.
Yeah.
And I,
That's
and I
not
will
gonna
say
happen until
this, you know, when you look
2030.
at some of the right sizing, we've not cut any programs. I mean, that's what's pretty amazing about it. You know, we have middle school teaming. We think it's very, very important, the middle school concept. You know, we still have, you know, the block 4 scheduling allows kids to go in, late ins, early out. And allows you to do a lot of creative things where allow kids to take a lot of different credits and explore. So we have not cut any programming there. None of our fine arts, none of the STEM or CT have been cut. So we're not cutting things. So that's a positive. But
And we have not raised our class sizes.
we have not. We have not. That's one thing I guess we can say. I know Mrs. Barker and has worked extremely hard with the elementary people trying to make sure we keep those class sizes and those admin guidelines. I know there are other districts around us. I can't say their name, but they are increasing class sizes in order to give raises. And when you increase class sizes over 30, you start having issues with behavior, supervision, and those things. So we have not, we are not doing that to our staff. We're still trying to maintain those class sizes. I think that's why you see in the priority of having an elementary alternative school is something that we are really looking at. And we have more information tonight from Mrs. Barker. But again, helping that classroom setting with behaviors. We have students that have challenges, and those challenges are going to be met. And then we can hopefully get those students back and transition back into those classrooms, but getting them help and therapeutic component at an earlier age. So then we won't see that in the middle school and high schools. And so we just feel like it's something needed. And I know they're going to be taking another school visit. We've already visited Aiken. I think last year I was on that trip. And they're going to take another trip to see really nuts and bolts and making sure we have that therapeutic component. But we have met with a group that would be able to provide that therapeutic component, and then we wouldn't have to pay for it, bill and Medicaid and those things. And so we're trying to look at creative ways to get students help without us having to pay for it in the bottom dollar. So
Last April, Ashley and I met as the chair and vice chair with the county council kind of in April in this process, to sit down and kind of go through this presentation with them, show them what we're doing to, right size, to make cuts, where adequate, why the needs are there, explain it, like have more dialogue with them. I feel like it was wildly successful in comparison to the past because I felt like they had an open ability to just ask the questions. We could really like dialogue around what was important. So I do think maybe as chair, vice chair, finance chair, something that's we set up and again, meet with the county in groups and just kind of have preliminary presentation like this so that like if there are questions they present, we're not like presenting and then it's like, well, we don't have our questions answered, so we're not, I'd rather proactively have that communication, keep an open door so we can continue to work together and build on that relationship we used last year. So I think that would be good.
It's great.
yeah, whatever you can do and whatever we can do to help support that. No, you guys did a wonderful job of, being able to articulate our needs and kind of what we were able to do last year. And so I know that's one reason why we're able to get village increase because of your hard work. So whatever we can do to support that, we'll be more willing to do that. So.
That we maybe said something. I know it was like early mid-April is when we kind of met with them. So maybe we get together and try to get with their schedule and figure out a good time to do that. And then
And we're hoping, after our meeting on Wednesday, we'll have a little bit better idea of some numbers.
yeah.
So that will help us too. The house numbers are usually pretty accurate when you get those first numbers. Just talking with other superintendents, those are usually pretty accurate numbers when you first get those. So.
the county likes to be conservative, so
Correct.
I also, which I appreciate because it definitely allows for some wiggle room.
Right.
So,
Oh, and we don't want to over project and then the
yes.
revenue doesn't.
I'd rather
continue to
be
work.
like under and be like, oh, yay, we have more than we wanted than the opposite. So.
But again, this was a big undertaking by Lisa and Tina and Dr. Wilson and Katie and Kenny. Everybody worked really hard to try to put these numbers and working with departments and making sure they had a voice in this whole.
I just want us to work in correlation with what you guys are doing. And so, you guys often work with the county administrative staff directly. And I think it's important us as elected entities work with our counterparts and have those conversations the same way you guys are having those conversations. So, yeah.
Well, it goes back to what Mr.
Appreciated it when y'all did that last year.
And it goes back to what Mr. Lee said, I just think starting sustainability, we are right sizing, we are absorbing positions to be able to put us in a position to do that. I don't see us being able to do that next year. We're going to where we can get. And so again, sustainability is what Mr. Lee said. I just don't know where else we get $2.8 million,
Operations is a huge issue.
Yeah.
But maybe you want to talk about capital. We have a whole 6 minutes to do that.
We have to cover the other two items, the two awards that were on the agenda.
Those two items, were included with our referendum projects and our 8% projects. We were bringing those, we'll bring those to the board tonight because they're over $250,000. Ask for your approval. So we
What
can
were
move
those
forward with
items, just to be-
projects. One is the HVAC controls. I'm looking at Jeff for Sand Hill Elementary School. And the other one is for the roof repair and exterior wall repair at Greg Middle School, a portion of that.
Two things we planned for.
We did.
Both under budget.
They're
both under
under
budget.
budget. Go Jeff.
Go.
Both under budget.
I love hearing that. Those are my favorite words. Under
Like the
budget.
last meeting
I'm
we
just
had,
kidding.
where we had a bit of.
The
an
surprise,
unplanned
yes,
surprise.
surprise, yes.
Yes.
So that's a pleasure. Last item on the agenda was kind of an update on the alternative funding routes. Don't know how else to characterize that, but magic ways, that somebody's gonna come up with money for capital.
Oh,
So,
for capital. So yes, I can speak to that. So there has been conversations for capital, for penny sales tax. That's an educational sales tax that's, been talked about. We did have a meeting, I want to say a month or so ago with, some county officials and legislators actually in this room at breakfast and talked about, and with also with DD4. And we talked about the educational sales tax and how that would be something to possibly put on the ballot. However, we would have to get the approval, or this would have to be approved by our delegation and by the governor in order to put that on the ballot. And so again, what is that going to look like? And usually when you do the penny sales tax or the educational sales tax, then you have to do a split. And since there's two school districts in the county, there would have to be a split on what that revenue would look like. After talking with bond counsel, talking with DD4, looking at their needs, our needs, you're looking at possibly a 70-30 split. That was something that was discussed with the board here as well, and also with our bond counsel. So we felt like that would be something that would be able to get the projects we need to get done, capital projects and the projects they need to get done. However, the one thing on there is the debt, paying back the debt. Our proposal was 10%, but there could be something in there, 30%, which would really,
Did you hear that officially from somewhere?
we did not.
Oh, okay. I was gonna
So-
say, I have not heard 30%.
Yeah.
It would be for property tax relief.
Yes.
Yes.
For the tax.
Sorry, you just
Yes, you're right.
threw me off when you
No,
said
no, no.
30.
So,
I'm like,
so, ours was 10%. But there are people that would like to see that it's 30%, property. But that would not do anything for us to help us, as far as projects, when you're looking, taking away from 8% dollars, and that, so that would not be, something that we would be, it'd be a good deal for us to go for. So, right now, we are still waiting to see if this bill will be filed, if it'll actually be filed. We were told it should be filed this week. By a member of the delegation, but we'll see if that will come to fruition on that. We were told there could be a few modifications. I don't know what those modifications were. We were not told of that. But both districts, DD4 and DD2, kind of agreed kind of what that split would look like. And then with good stewards there, then going back into operations, something was talked about as well was revenue sharing. I know that was brought up by the delegation before about, instead of consolidation, if you guys would work together to come up with revenue sharing. As you know, all the industry is in DD4 and all the new industries out there, which then goes into helping us pay for operations, which is in turn teacher salaries. And so that is something that has been discussed, but this is kind of the first hurdle here. And then we would look at, the county would have to put something in as far as revenue sharing that we would work with DD4. So those are some things that we are trying to explore, to try to, again, like what you said, Mr. Lee, earlier about sustainability, not saying that's going to sustain everything for us. But if we could get some of that revenue sharing with operations, that would be something that would help us a little bit with our teacher pay.
I like that, it's like our if we were able to get Penny, that would help them with,
Yes,
you know, capital, just like it would help us, but also the operational side. They help us with operations, we help
That's
them with
correct.
capital, because they can't go for a referendum themselves.
correct.
So. if
And
they-
so just trying to work together to
Give and
come up
take.
with a solution with both of those things. And so I hope that answers your question on that.
It answers some.
Okay.
Um,
Last I heard, it was gonna be filed as is, so we'll see.
Okay, well, that's
Hopefully,
news to
hopefully
me.
that's the case.
Well, and this is part of my concern is that the way in which all this is handled and whatnot is through these one-off conversations and everything. And my concern, again, to harp on sustainability and reliable forms of income, the 1% sales tax, I've yet to see the pro forma. It says, what does that fix? How much of that is going to go to divert in tax relief versus how much is actually going to generate capital that we in turn can use? Correct me if I'm wrong, we have probably 3 or 4 facilities that are going to need to be built over the next 5 years, give or take. Total cost of those facilities probably exceeds whatever we're going to get in terms of revenue from the sales tax. So again, we haven't solved the problem. We just pushed it further down the road. The revenue sharing, every little bit helps. Yes. Is that going to do anything substantive to deal with the fact that, Charleston, we're, more than $10,000 off in salaries. That is only going to continue to spread. Berkeley, not quite as far. What do we do here? And so, my concern is, again, the way we fund is in vain. The way this is going about, I am not convinced that it's really solving the problem, but continuing to kick the can down the road, only to pick up the can and kick it further down the road. And the 4-letter word underneath all of this, don't cover your ears, is debt. Okay? Debt is going to be a challenge. So those are my concerns. Again, my questions are, when are we going to see some pro forma, some real numbers? It bothers me when I hear, well, there may be some changes. Well, what are those changes? Again, I'm unhappy, not that the district is not fully at the table to hear about these changes. And take what you get. Okay, I'm not a fan.
At least we're moving, I'm such an optimist. I'm always like, at least we're moving in the right direction. We're partially at the table and they're listening. And you know what? Hey,
Better than where we've been,
you
right?
know, yes, we're not where we want to be, but we're not where we once were. And so, and I do believe we did get some numbers from the bond council regarding the penny and what that would look like over time. So, I mean, if you could email those to the board just to update us or
Okay.
have those, that would be great. And can you include that with the 10% or 15% that would go towards the,
Property tax relief, okay.
thank you.
Any other questions, comments?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Any of the public comments? Hearing this? All right. We are adjourned.